guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today once again we have Manchester United match coverage in Manchester United's final pre-season game before the official competitive fixtures start. This time against Athletic Club or Athletic Bilbao, you might know them from either name. 1-1 draw. Today we're going to talk about kind of a few tactical things, because of course that's important, but also more a focus on what players I think might have impressed Erik ten Hag and might have given themselves a shot potentially at playing next week. So let's get into it. So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, jerseyfifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order. So we will start with more of a tactical look and kind of talk about some of the individuals as we go through the team to see who impressed. And in terms of from a tactical point of view, I thought Manchester United were pretty decent when they played the ball out from the back. Athletic Bilbao put on a real good press in a 4-2-3-1 shape. They're looking to squeeze nice and high. They were often playing with a pretty high line at the back, allowing them to kind of connect as a press, squeeze quite high up the pitch, and really put Manchester United under pressure. So it was a good test for these players to kind of face that before the season starts. From these areas though, one player which really impressed me was Daniel Gore, or Dan Gore. Thanks to his ability and his willingness more than anything to drop deep and help his teammates in this area. So for example, if Maguire was getting the ball in this situation here and was finding himself in a little bit of trouble, Dan Gore was constantly happy to drop into this area, right into his own penalty area, to pick the ball up before kind of trusting his own press resistance, his own technical ability to kind of draw the pressure in and then beat that man. And I think Dan Gore is a player which has impressed me probably the most out of all of the Manchester United youngsters in this pre-season tour, apart from Kobe Mainu earlier on in the summer. I think Dan Gore has been really very good, so I will have a video breaking him down more in depth in the coming days, probably before the season starts. But I thought he was really good at helping United play out from the back. And in general, I thought United were good in these areas. Of course, Harry Maguire makes a mistake for the goal, and as a result then gets booed for the rest of the match. I thought it was a little bit harsh. I don't think you need to boo him. I mean, if you're an adult booing a player for your own team, a bit weird. But apart from that, obviously it's a bad mistake. Apart from that, I think he played well. It is a bad mistake. It has happened too much in pre-season. I think the last 4 goals that United have conceded have all been from individual errors where a defender has literally passed the ball to the opposition. So Erik ten Hag needs to kind of sort that out. But in general, error aside, I think United were pretty good at playing their way out from the back, which was good to see. From here, they then once again look to build possession in some form of a back 3. And I say some form of a back 3 because it wasn't consistent in the way that they'd done it, because there was loads and loads of rotations in these areas. At times, for example, it would be a back 3 which looked a little bit like this, but there were also plenty of situations where Dan Gore was dropping into a back 3 once again, Eriksen was dropping a little bit deeper, allowing United to try and take control. But what I liked the most from this position was that if United didn't feel that they could move the ball forward, rather than rushing it and trying to force the pass between the lines, United were happy to come back and use Tom Heaton. So kind of by this point, Bilbao had been forced a little bit deeper because of course United have played out from the back. It meant that Tom Heaton was then playing a little bit higher than what you would perhaps typically expect from a goalkeeper, but it made him an option in possession as a real cycle point, I guess. So when United were getting towards the halfway line in these areas up here, but they were finding themselves, simply faced with too many players in front of them, they couldn't find a way through. They quite effectively went back to Tom Heaton. This then kind of draws the opposition out a little bit higher as they try to come and press you. But because Tom Heaton is now the spare man, it means that you can then kind of find the pass back forward again and then move the ball forward from there. So I thought that was quite effective, the way that United done that. Again, Tom Heaton done well in that department. Dan Gore was really good. But also Alvaro Fernandez at left back done a really good job of sometimes playing as a pivot, sometimes in a back 3, sometimes in more of a central midfield position. He done a really, really good job from a technical point of view, and in general has really, really impressed me in this pre-season tour. And I think he's got to a point where he should either be back up to Luke Shaw, or he should get a Premier League loan this season if possible. I saw someone in the comments the other day talking about Burnley. If he could play Burnley, regular game time, that would be a really good loan move for him in my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see how that develops. But in general, I thought United were kind of good moving from this first phase to the second phase. In terms of once in the second phase though, the thing which disappointed me a little bit was the inability to progress the ball in wide areas. the likes of Forson, Palestri weren't really getting on the ball in the middle third. There was no real progression out wide from Harry Maguire kind of stepping forward with the ball, or really Dan Gore down this side either. Fernandes was the one player which sort of provided it at times, but United did struggle to move the ball forward out wide. However, whilst they may have struggled out wide, they didn't struggle so much in the middle of the pitch, and that was largely thanks to one player, Jadon Sancho, who, playing as the false nine and then dropping into this position, was genuinely incredible. And of course, we shouldn't get too caught up on pre-season performances against teams and players which may not be completely sharp, but Jadon Sancho right now looks like the fittest and the sharpest version of Jadon Sancho that we have seen at Manchester United. Of course, like I said, this is pre-season, the true judgment will come in the competitive season, but Jadon Sancho has given himself a genuine, real opportunity to start next week against Wolverhampton, because he was so good in this game. He was absolutely brilliant. I'm sure he would have been disappointed not to play in the team which played at Old Trafford on Saturday, but he really put that behind him, and this was a statement performance. His linking ability, once in these areas, was genuinely incredible. Whether he's getting the ball and kind of playing a first-time flick round the corner for a winger to run onto, something which Forson done really well, kind of running from out to in, or he's taking the ball himself and playing it a bit simpler, just kind of knitting the play together, or receiving on the half-turn. Something we've seen him do in pre-season a few times is kind of getting the ball in these areas, hitting the opposition with either a chop or some sort of skill to kind of spin the player which is close to him and then run into space. And he even looks quicker at the moment than what we've seen at Manchester United. Again, kind of pointing to that sharpness and those fitness levels. He really does look really very good at the moment. And I thought he was absolutely brilliant in this game. His linking ability, he looked to me by far the best player on the pitch. I don't think anyone else really touched the level that he was getting to. He was absolutely brilliant, and this really allowed United to progress the ball forward, and he was turning situations which were quite slow in deeper areas into real quick transitional situations. Because of his ability to get on the turn or play a quick flick, it allowed United to quickly attack the defence. So Sancho was absolutely brilliant in that regard, and in general, United were pretty decent for these first two phases. As United moved up the pitch and then sustained possession and kind of kept Bilbao camped in their own defensive areas, we saw a slight change in shape, and it was more to this shape, where we'd probably call it a 2-3-5 or a 2-3-4-1. The two centre-backs here, we then got this three in here in the two full-backs and also Dan Gore, and then the four players just behind Jadon Sancho. But again, this is something we've seen from Ten Hag's side before, but I felt that it was done a little bit differently in this game, because it wasn't actually quite like what we've got on screen here. It was actually much more crowded, if you like, and much more overloaded. For example, when the ball was going wide to Wan-Bissaka and into Facundo Palestri, we'd see Donny van de Beek in this position, Jadon Sancho was over here, but even at times Forson was over here. Now, of course, this leaves United with a lack of width and lack of ability to stretch the pitch, which at times is a problem, but the flip side of that is that if you've got a lot of players in these areas who are all very technical, especially when someone like Christian Eriksen's joining the party as well, players like Eriksen, Van de Beek, Palestri, Sancho, they have got really good technical ability and the ability to play two-touch football, which when it works, you know, you pick the ball up here, you pop it here, pop it here, pop it here, and then kind of get on a quick turn, and then you're going to have a runner off the ball. It was, at times, really quick, sharp football from Manchester United. They just kind of lacked that final touch or that final delivery into the box. But again, Jadon Sancho was a big part of playing very well in this situation. I also thought Facundo Palestri was bright again. But I think that's obvious at this point. Facundo Palestri is always bright when he plays. I'm not really too sure what his future at the club is. I think he's probably going to get a new contract and then go out on loan or something. But he needs to play football because every time he plays, he looks so good, and he's almost a bit of an old school winger at times, being right footed on the right hand side. He doesn't want to cut in all the time. He's looking to get to the byline and cut balls back into the box. And of course, he scored the late equaliser as well with pretty much the last touch of the game. He looked really bright once again, particularly in the final third. Like I said earlier, he wasn't so good in deeper areas trying to progress the ball, but in the final third he really came to life, and he always looks good when he goes at his man. And that was Manchester United's biggest threat. We saw something similar down the left-hand side. If Forson was in this position, United would kind of overload like this, get several players over into that area, and try quick combinations. Of course, like I've said, the problem with this sort of structure is that when you aren't connecting with your passes, it leaves you a little bit stale and unable to really break down the opposition. And United did have spells of the game where they were like that. But of course, what you got to remember was this was very much Manchester United's second team with also some other players sprinkled in, the likes of Forson, Fernandes, Dan Gore. up against Athletic Club's genuine first team. They are a good side in La Liga, so it was a real good test for these United players. I think it was a good way to end pre-season. It's a shame United couldn't finish with a more positive result, but in general, I thought they played pretty well. I think Tom Heaton was good in goal. I think Fernandes at left back was genuinely really good. And like I've said, I think he's got a chance to maybe become a proper squad player this season. I thought Dan Gore, was very, very good with his performance. Like I said, I will do a video on him at some point this week. Facundo Pellistri on the right-hand side looks very bright again, confirming that he needs minutes this season, because if he gets minutes, he could become a very, very dangerous player. But Jadon Sancho, for me, was the standout. Probably, to be fair, as you would expect, when you look at this lineup, you would expect him to be one of the better players. But for me, he was the best player on the pitch by a distance. Again, that sharpness, that athleticism as well to his game, which we haven't seen so much, but also technically very, very clean, very decisive in his actions. All round, I thought he was very good, and he's got a big, big chance of starting next weekend. But those are probably my thoughts for this game. Of course, once again, it was a pre-season game, it wasn't the first team, so you can't take too much from the performance. However, there was kind of pluses to the performance, a couple of negatives, of course, that Maguire mistake. Donny van de Beek still not quite really doing enough to really make a claim to be in this team. But overall, a decent day for Manchester United. I think it's been a decent pre-season. I think Ten Hag will have learned quite a good amount about this squad. I think he would have learned about certain individuals, what positions they can and can't play. Sancho in that false nine has been a revelation, so overall it's been a good pre-season for Erik Ten Hag and Manchester United. But now the serious work starts from here moving forward into the competitive season. So that's where we're going to leave this video for today. That is pre-season done. I hope you guys have enjoyed my pre-season coverage. I might do one more video just breaking down Garnacho's performance from over the weekend. But apart from that, I think we are now done with pre-season. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.